we are going to jump right into a discussion about some of the novel therapies that there is much buzz about right now. And it's kind of an alphabet soup, these novel therapies. I actually was trying to digest all of this information and divided it into three kind of general categories, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have monoclonal antibodies, we have bispecific antibodies like the CAR T therapies, and they target different things. We have BCMA, we have GPRC5D, 5CHR5, we have things called antibody drug conjugates and CELMoDs. So Dr. Ailawadhi, if you can just give us kind of a broad overview of these therapies and how they may be used to harness our immune system and how they come into play when you're treating your patients, how and when they come into play when treating your patients.
Sure, Lisa. I think thanks a lot for bringing up that discussion. This is extremely important. And I think it's most important because if a myeloma patient goes online, wants to search for information or research, these things start coming up, these terms start coming up. So it's extremely important for a knowledgeable, empowered patient to learn about these, understand them so that they are able to digest that information. And I should mention that a lot of what we'll talk about these particular treatments may not be applicable to a newly diagnosed patient or a recently diagnosed patient, but this is important enough and exciting enough that I would want every single patient to pick up this information, learn it hopefully, and maybe park it for now somewhere so that hopefully down the road it becomes important and handy. So you asked about monoclonals, bispecifics, CAR T, CELMoDs, etc. Let's take a step back. Let's think about these as strategies to target myeloma. Myeloma treatment is going through a sea change where immunotherapy and harnessing the body's own immune system is becoming extremely important. And when we do that, the immunotherapy is typically very targeted. So what these drugs, these agents, these terms, this alphabet soup is doing is it is targeting specific markers on the myeloma cell, on the plasma cell. For example, one of the markers is CD38. There is a monoclonal antibody. There are actually two monoclonal antibodies, daratumumab and isatuximab, that are FDA approved, but there are other ways of targeting CD38. For example, CD38 targeting CAR T cells, CD38 targeting antibody drug conjugates, etc. So CD38 is one important part. A very, very, very important thing in the past 1 year or year and a half has been what's called BCMA, B cell maturation antigen. BCMA is another target on plasma cells, very effective, very specific. So there are many, many drugs that are available and becoming available to target BCMA. Right now, there are 3 drugs that are FDA approved that can target BCMA. 2 of them are CAR T cells, a particular way of going after BCMA in which the body's own T cells are collected. These are not stem cells, these are T cells, T lymphocytes. These T cells are collected. They are actually genetically modified to go and fight against the BCMA. And then those modified T cells are multiplied in the lab and given to the person as a drug. They go in, seek the plasma cells because the BCMA kill them, harnessing the body's immune system. So there are 2 CAR T cells against BCMA, one called ide-cel, one called cilta-cel. There has recently been available a bispecific antibody against BCMA. We call it bispecific because it connects to BCMA from one end, and from a second end, it connects to the body's T cells. Again, bringing the T cells close to the plasma cells to kill them. That bispecific antibody is called teclistamab. And till recently, there was another drug available against BCMA, which was what's called an antibody drug conjugate. This drug is called belantamab. For the time being, belantamab has been removed or withdrawn from the market in the US, but there are ongoing clinical trials, and down the road it may come back again. Now, antibody drug conjugate is another way of targeting something in which there is a seeker for the BCMA in this case, and it has a payload of some kind of a toxin, so that when the drug connects to the plasma cell through the BCMA in this case, that toxin is released, it can kill the cell. So either we harness the body's immune cells, the T cells, by CAR T or bispecific, or we kill the cell by releasing a toxic payload from a drug, antibody drug conjugate. These are all different methods of targeting the myeloma cell. So I talked to you about monoclonal, bispecific, CAR T, and ADC as different strategies. CD38 and BCMA, some of these strategies are available, but there are other targets which are very exciting, and new drugs are being developed against them. Two of the very interesting targets there, one is called GPRC5D, and the other is FCRH5. These GPRC or FCRH are two different targets on myeloma cells. No drugs are currently FDA approved, but they are being developed very rapidly, and we have a couple of extremely promising agents which will be coming down the pike. And you also mentioned something called CELMoDs. CELMoDs are some newer drugs in the family of what's called IMiDs or immunomodulators, in which our patients may be aware of thalidomide, lenalidomide, and pomalidomide. These CELMoDs are kind of the same family, and there are a couple of them that are also being developed. So why is this important for everybody, whether they are newly diagnosed or relapsed or long-term survivor with myeloma? Because this tells you that not only are we getting newer drugs in the same classes, we are also getting brand new classes of drugs. And you can imagine that means that those brand new strategies are ways to target the plasma cell. We know cancer cells are smart, and they develop evasive mechanisms to become resistant to drugs. But every time something gets resistant, if we have a brand new mechanism to go against the disease, well, that's exciting, because that's why we are seeing deeper responses even in very heavily pretreated patients, because we are using newer, specific, relatively safe, convenient strategies to going after the plasma cell. I know that was a lot of information, but I hope this helps our listeners learn a little bit about what you rightly said is an alphabet soup, but I would like us to think about it as an exciting time for being a myeloma doctor, and certainly a very hopeful situation for all our patients.